Welcome back to a new mic up video. I just got back from my competition, just pulled in the driveway, still got my singlet stuff on. I don't know why, but I suppose it's a tradition at this point, but basically at the last like 3 or 4 meets, I've come home and just trained. I think part of that's because it's just, 6 lifts. So it's not like a super difficult training session, but also I take more caffeine than normal. So when I get back, I still have more than enough energy. I think I took for sure 600 milligrams of caffeine. I might have taken 800, but I feel like I would have felt that a lot more because I've taken 400 a couple times on this training block. But usually it's a 2-hour weigh-in. So I get there at 10 a.m. I take 200 right then because I don't have any caffeine in the morning. Then another 200 when I'm warming up for snatching. And then after snatching, before clean and jerks, I take another 200. So then it's kind of balanced throughout the session because it is a lot of waiting around. But not to hold you in suspense. So it's I think my last video will probably be just a quick clips of the competition. My last snatch, my friend didn't get recorded, but I missed the 126 the second time. So I opened at 121. I made that, and then I missed 126 twice. For clean and jerks, I lowered my opener from 158 down to 155 just to be a little bit more conservative. Hit the 155, went up to 160 and hit that. And then surprisingly, when I looked at it just now in the video, it was actually a decent attempt at the 165, but that would have been a 3-kilo lifetime PR, and I hadn't hit 160 the whole training block, whether it's just from a jerk or a clean and jerk. I only had cleaned it a couple times, so the fact that I was able to do it pretty easily was quite encouraging. But it's weird. I'm not really disappointed in the competition. Obviously, I would have liked to do more, but just based on how like my last week of training, I was missing a lot of snatches and stuff. Like I'm glad I didn't bomb out or anything like that. I went and I didn't miss any warm-ups, which is nice. Got to the first one, and the 121 was difficult because I looped it a little bit behind me, but I was able to save it and stabilize it. And the 126s just weren't there. It's just too slow. And one of the things that one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is one, to kind of mention the lifts and kind of debrief from them, but also talk about plans for the next competition, next kind of local meet thing that I'll do, and also kind of talk about training and what I want that to look like. So obviously after a peak like this, I'm going to go back and doing more volume. But one of the ways that I'm planning on getting more volume is through a lot more hypertrophy, a lot more like bodybuilding type work. And maybe that's influenced by watching more Sam Sulek videos, but I think I would benefit, especially with my upper body, of just doing more hypertrophy for all of this upper area. So more like lateral raises and internal rotators and like just all kinds of stuff to kind of just pump that area several times a week, as well as doing more just general arm stuff. I don't necessarily think that like my triceps and biceps are limiters in any of my lifts, but it's not going to hurt to have them be actually stronger, because a lot of times when I do these movements, I would have the bands or I would just do them really light and just try to get a quick pump. I want to start pushing them a little bit more aggressively with the kind of bodybuilding work to go a bit heavier with them, but of course also to do the drop downs to get the kind of pump there, because I'm not necessarily worried about adding muscle and building muscle. I just want that muscle to be a bit stronger. So the focus is really going to be a lot of upper body stuff. I won't be doing like bench press and stuff like that, because that just makes my shoulders irritated from doing those, and I don't really like bench pressing. But a lot of shoulder specific stuff, bicep, tricep specific stuff, as well as like a lot of rowing variations. I want to add those in. So it depends on how I want to add them in, but I think at a minimum, like a couple times in the week, I want to get like a really good shoulder pump, a really good shoulder workout at the end of one of my sessions. And generally, I'm going to be doing more reps and everything like that. But the tentative plan, I want to grab these blues and start doing some shoulders so I'm not standing here too long. It's actually quite warm today, which is why I don't really have the sleeping bag insulating the door as much. I could have honestly had the door open, but it messes, it's still light outside, so I'd rather just have it there so the light's consistent in here. But the next competition that I would like to do is in that same venue, that same Columbus place that I went to in the spring. Either late spring, so towards the end of the school year, around my spring break, so like April-ish, or early in the summer. One of those 2 times. So I'm not, I haven't signed up or done anything definitive for those dates, but I just want them to be something in that time, so I have plenty of time to train and get to the point where my shoulders are more balanced and more stable. So actually talking with the owner of the gym after, I was mentioning how like my left arm felt slower on the turnover. He mentioned like, it's in probably an imbalance of some sort, and that's definitely true. My left arm is definitely weaker than my right, so I want to get it stronger and more balanced and do a lot of these like rotators. These will be good, and really just hammer my shoulders, whether it be with a little bit of heavier weight or more just general hypertrophy, and do it a couple times a week to really just get blood into those muscles and just try to build them up. And at a minimum, it'll help stabilize that joint. At a maximum, it'll get them stronger. So a couple more reps there. Thankfully, I have good genetics for adding muscle and getting bigger in general. So I'm not, have to work super crazily hard to add, strength in those areas, but I just have to put a lot more focus on them. And I think another adjustment when I'm doing my next preparation is, one, don't get sick, which I don't really have control over. Don't strain my calf, which I don't really have a lot of control over because it was just it was a random thing that happened. Make sure that happens, but also to do more volume closer to the competition. So I basically stopped doing volume after my calf strain to try to get that to be better. And then I kind of just tapered it all off, which was probably too early. And my plan was to go, I think, through that week before I did it. So it wasn't a huge difference, but I think I really should have went that whole next week and doing volume in terms of drop down sets in the squats, more pressing and stuff like that. I think I would have benefited from that as well. My shoulders are already getting a crazy pump. I haven't taken, so I have the caffeine pills from bulk supplements, so I don't even have like beta alanine or other stuff that's in the normal pre-workouts that I have as well. Just straight caffeine, which for a competition, I think that's probably ideal. And that's a recommendation I'd give for anyone, is to have some sort of caffeine tablet so you know the amount of caffeine that you're having, and it's a stabilized amount. So you can kind of do what I did and kind of time it throughout the comp so you have energy throughout. I will say that I felt good throughout the competition, but even like warming up on snatches, I kind of felt like I was going to be fighting with the weights, and that certainly was true. And it's one of those things that, like, if I was feeling really good going into that day and then I felt like that, then I'd be a little bit more sad. But the fact that I was I kind of felt like how I had been feeling, then it kind of makes sense. The real big positive is just how my legs felt, and I felt generally recovered and ready. So it wasn't as if I had done too much in the last couple days, but my legs felt strong. My cleans felt good. The fact that I was able to take a decent attempt at 165 after not even, my heaviest clean and jerk this whole last 5-week peak was 156. I always get a lot more out of competition, which is probably why I'll always do competition, because I always hit my best clean and jerks at them. My PR is still 162 that I did at my last meet. I did 160 today, and that's 4 kilos more than I'd done the whole training block. And it's just kind of interesting that I have that phenomenon, because I wasn't like more hyped up than normal. For the actual competition, I followed myself on all the lifts, so it actually was nice. I actually like following myself, because then you just train. For me, it's like training normally, because I don't take a ton of rest between my sets. It's more so just getting started with, like, once my hands are on the bar, just like starting to lift. I struggle a little bit at that, but it's just more of, I just have to practice making sure that, once the clock started, that I'm taking a little bit less time when I'm initiating, or at least like setting up for the lift and whatnot. So I can do a little bit better at that. So I think one of my lifts, I might have been my last snatch, where I think my friend said I timed out technically, but it's a local meet, so they're not going to stress about that. And I missed it anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered even if they were going to be strict about it. But definitely want to get to the point where that 126 I obviously make, but I want to open at that the next time I compete. So that's kind of the goal, is to make that obviously a number that I make all the time, or a number I could do like doubles with, or just get stronger, so that's an easier weight to do. I also I'm pretty happy with clean and jerks, honestly. I just want to be able to have done like 160 plus in training, and potentially have done do another 160, because 165 is my best jerk from the rack ever. But I want that to be like get up to 160 and have that be a consistent number. Grab these 10s out and start doing them. So that will be another focus as well. Of course, you know, it's not going to change because weightlifting is always, you know, the same lifts or whatnot. So, I mean, obviously you want to get better at those and whatnot. But I think that ideally before my next comp, I will have hit either 130 or a little bit more in the snatch prior to peaking. And then with the clean jerk, either 160 or a little bit more than that prior to peaking. I think that would have been ideal in this block. Now I was coming off the hip strain in the summer. So I kind of used this block to kind of make sure I was back in shape. Obviously, you know, to peak for competition, but I hadn't been hitting, you know, crazy heavy numbers. And honestly, you know, I'm pretty happy that I'm back to normal as far as, you know, how my body feels in general. I just have to get what I'm working on right now, my shoulders and my upper back stronger. These are really burning my shoulders, but I got the energy for them. Whew. But take a break here for a second. Starting to stop the camera, make sure I'm not going to run out. I did win Best Lifter, but it's a local meet, so it's not really that big of a deal. But I got a bunch of cookies for it, which is nice. The last time at this meet, when I got the Best Lifter thing, I got a book and some, I think like a lacrosse ball and stuff. So that's why I like going to this place, not because, you know, I get stuff if I win, but like they just do a good job at the meets and they're really nice there. And the space is really good and it's not too far away. So I definitely will plan on going there unless there's some other different place that's a bit closer or some other meet that is around that time that's at a better time for me in the spring. Like I mentioned, ideally it would be spring break, but you know, that's hard to exactly plan for at this point. I'm not going to do the Arnold Classic or anything like that. I think my total probably would qualify for that, but I haven't looked at that for the AO1. I'm worried theoretically doing the American Open Finals or not doing it, but at least being strong enough to qualify for it, because I don't really care about going to those big meets because I'm not a big lifter, just fat. But that's something else. After in the next clip, I'll talk about bodyweight stuff. But let's burp here because I've eaten about 6 of those cookies and just keep getting some shoulder hypertrophy. So speaking of body weight and manipulating that, I don't necessarily want to cut a bunch of weight and lose a bunch of weight. Like I don't want to necessarily go down to 102, but I'm not going to be upset if I start losing a bit of weight, especially at this point of training where I'm doing a lot more reps. I'm not really going to feel the effects of being a bit weaker at this point. So I think it would be a good point to do that. And at worst, you know, I get below 230, lose about 5 pounds, and then kind of recomp and go back up from there. Or at a minimum, just kind of like resensitize myself to food. I love actually what Sam Solik talked about. I thought that was a good idea of, you know, doing like a dedicated time where you're cutting down a little bit. So then when you start adding additional calories, you kind of feel the benefit of it. Because right now I feel like I'm just kind of eating as much as I can and I'm not really gaining weight, which isn't necessarily bad or anything. But I wanted to lose a little bit of weight and then kind of like recomp and come back up. And also probably resensitize myself to caffeine. So really kind of dial that back. I'm not going to cold turkey or anything like that because I am a teacher and I do need to have some so I can actually teach. So I'll probably just have coffee at work and maybe just only have coffee because I still like coffee, even if it's decaf, but not have pre-workout or anything and just have like coffee during the day. I don't know what they're doing out there. Cup of coffee during the day, maybe 2, and then have 1 when I get home before I train, and then kind of just go about it that way. And then maybe even dial the coffee back at work because I don't drink. It's like a small styrofoam cup. And so like when I say 2, it's literally like 2 probably 8-ounce cups. So it's not really a lot. But I like to sensitize myself to caffeine a little bit more. And when you're doing, you know, volume work in the gym, you don't really need a bunch of caffeine to get through it when the numbers that you hit aren't really the imperative thing. It's more like what I'm doing now. It's more just trying to get a pump here, which I think I can work harder at doing bodybuilding stuff. Because a lot of times, like what I'm doing now, like I'm talking while I'm doing it, and it's not necessarily like I got to be hyper focused to do a bunch of reps, but I can still kind of push my body a bit harder in the bodybuilding stuff and try to make my shoulders feel as pumped as they can, and so they feel better, and just kind of go about it that way. But so I guess to conclude the meet talk, I was a 281 total. I weighed 107 at weigh-ins, so 235. I missed the 126 twice, so 1 for 3 in the snatch, 2 for 3 in the clean and jerk, missing the 165. And of course, in the next competition I do, I want to do more. I want to be able to hit that 130 before it's all said and done. And I think this is an achievable goal. I would like to be able to do a 140, 170 in competition and not be a super heavy. I don't want to weigh 400 pounds to do it. So I think it's possible even below 109 or at 109, but I think it's achievable for myself, even a little bit lighter. So in the long term, that's the goal. And, you know, hitting those numbers doesn't necessarily mean that I'll stop weightlifting itself, but that's kind of like my lifetime goal, to be able to hit those two numbers in the same day. So like a 310 total. But, you know, at that juncture, I'll probably still be weightlifting and still want to do the movements and push beyond there. But I think those would be really cool numbers to be able to hit for someone that trains on their own. Most of the time doesn't have a coach. Started weightlifting I was like 23. So, I mean, I've been doing it for a while now. And when I did it when I was 23, it was certainly dabbling then. But like, I started later in life. You know, I'm not one of those people that started when there's 15, 16 and had all those years of practice with it. So I would like to get to that. I think it's possible. I think more is possible. But I think the 140, 170 in a competition as not a super heavy is very possible and a very attainable. Like, it's not saying like 150, 180. I'm so far away for those numbers that it's hard to really contextualize. 140, 170, they're numbers I've tried to do 140 off the high blocks in the snatch. I've cleaned 170 a bunch of times. So it's like, it's weights that I have tried, or at least like have touched before. It's not like 150, 180, where it's like I've only done pulls and squats with them that I'm like, I want to snatch those. And I obviously be cool, but got to get past those points. So as far as squats and stuff go, really was happy with these 5 weeks and how my squats felt, how my legs felt. So I don't want to mess with what feels good. So I'll probably continue to do like a heavy single and then drop down and do more volume. At this point, like the top single that I do is not as important. So, you know, get to something like maybe just continue to just do like a 200 kilo squat and then drop down and do triples or even more than that in the back squat. And then for the front squat, you know, get up to something like 170 and then drop down and do some reps with there. But, you know, I don't really think a lot of the training is complicated. I think what I need to get better at is going harder in the bodybuilding stuff and really trying to, you know, put a lot of blood in those muscles that are weak, particularly my upper body. I don't think I have to put a ton of work specifically for like bodybuilding stuff in my lower body, because I think those areas are relatively stronger. And I don't think that, you know, doing a lot of like leg press or leg extension or anything like that's going to necessarily benefit me a ton, because if you saw the clips of me doing the cleans, wasn't really struggling too much with those. It's more of just the actual specific work of like doing the jerks that's going to be helpful as well. Something else that I want to experiment with a bit too is at Seek of Strength, they were talking with that bobsled guy about how he would use depth jumps a couple weeks out from a competition that he would do and to make his jerks feel really good. So I kind of want to experiment with that, not necessarily waiting until the next competition to do it, but to do it at like the end of a training cycle. And so speaking of like a training cycle, or, you know, how this hypertrophy and all this stuff will going, I don't have an exact time when I want it to end, because even if I'm doing hypertrophy stuff, I still will push up some of the lifts at different points. But I want to focus on trying to move faster, trying to get the rotation of this left shoulder to be snappy like my right arm is, because I honestly don't think that like there's structurally anything really terribly wrong with my shoulder, because I've snatched up to 130 in these last 5 weeks and I've, you know, held it fine and I don't really have shoulder pain. But now that it's basically healthy, I think it's just weaker than the other side a little bit. So this like literally this motion right here, I feel like just hammering these will be really good to do. whether it's with these 5-pound plates or with the bands, and really just pumping my shoulders, which they're getting a nice burn now. But I think it will be good to do basically as many times during the week as I can force myself to do them. And not that it's hard for me to come out here and do some lateral raises and stuff, but to really kind of work hard at them, it definitely, it's not as easy, because like normally I would get to the burn like how I've got to now, and I'd be like, all right, that's good, I'm done. But I kind of want to push past that and kind of get that bodybuilder feel of like I've really like destroyed or really like worked my shoulders, and then potentially, you know, pick whether it's shoulders and then bicep triceps one day and kind of go about it that way. You know, pick one part of my upper body to really hammer after each session, because obviously it's not going to be to my benefit to do, you know, a bunch of shoulder stuff every single day. But if I can vary it between, you know, my shoulders, maybe like a day where it's bi tri, and then another day where it's like my upper back or rear delts and stuff, I think that would be good. Potentially add other accessories, but I really think like just getting that all stronger will just, one, help this to be just faster, but also to be more stable, so it's not as crashy in the bottom. But I don't know. It's one of those things, like I feel good right now. I feel like I want to just train and like do squats and stuff, but I don't really think that's going to benefit me. And I'd rather, you know, come out here and do this bodybuilding stuff and then come back fresh tomorrow and then start the beginning of a training cycle. I've already kind of like tentatively planned things, but perhaps the biggest benefit of doing a competition, and why the only thing I would only reason I would advocate that most people should try to do a competition is that it informs you of how you need to prepare to go to a maximum single, but it also informs you of how you perform when you're doing those heavy singles. Because if you're in the gym, you happen to have your music in a perfect environment and everything goes well and you're able to hit a number, maybe you do it once out of a blue moon and you're like, well, that's my PR. Well, competition, it's like I have to do all these numbers on this specific day. So your training has to be a lot more dialed in. So it just gives you that more information. It's like, all right, you know, 6 or 7 days out, I did this, and then this went well and this went bad. It just gives you more information that helps you inform your training. And you don't have to do a big meet. Like you see all the meets I do, just local meets. I think those are best for most people, unless you're trying to go, you know, qualify for some crazy team or anything. I'm not. I'm just an ordinary pleb. But we'll start and stop and then hit these 10s a bunch more times. I'm actually feeling a good pump, feeling a little juiced up in a good way, not the Sam Solik way, in a normal blood flow way. That's what I'm going to take for him, is the bodybuilding stuff, not the accessories that he does on top of the bodybuilding stuff, because I ain't trying to blow up my liver at this point in my life. But let's stop the clip, and I'll keep rambling about the next training cycle. There's lots of other benefits of doing a competition. You kind of get to be in a weightlifting environment if this is your sport. Same with like if you do powerlifting or anything, you just get to be around people who are passionate and work hard at the same thing that you do. So it's kind of nice just to be around that. That's one of the things I miss out on, not being at a weightlifting gym, not being around that as much. I also realized, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I realized that I train plenty fast enough with rest in between. Yeah, I did talk about this with, because I take a while before I actually do the lift, but like my rest time is actually like extremely quick for a competition. I was, that's one thing my friend and I, who helps me at the meets counting, my old, I say old training partner, but like occasionally we'll train together. He just doesn't really do weightlifting much anymore. He just tries to train for health. But we talked about for the next one to potentially do more volume, like doubles or like maybe like cluster doubles as I work up in the snatch instead of just doing singles. And I theorized, because he does a really good job of counting and giving myself enough time, but because this meet was so small, I think there ended up being 7 people in total that were lifting, 7 or 8. There was a lot of time in between attempts because everyone was following themselves, especially on the male side. There was 3 guys that were lifting, and we all followed ourselves on all of our attempts, I think, because we were spaced out enough in strength. But I think what I'll do when I'm warming up in the back for the next competition is to do 2 singles at each weight, other than maybe like the last one in the back room. So like I would do, and I'll warm up every 3 attempts up there, which if you follow Catalyst, that's kind of the model that he uses. And he always does a really good job of counting. I've never felt like rushed. If anything, I feel like I have too much time to recover and I get antsy, which is not really, an issue with him counting. It's more of just, I usually train faster than when I'm sitting back there for a couple minutes. But because I have all that time, instead of, sitting there and waiting a couple minutes, that I would just do two, like a cluster double during that time. So if I'm going to go there, it's been 3 attempts, I'm going to take, say, 80 kilos. Like I'm going to do, 80 kilos 2 times during the next, time that I'm sitting there waiting. So I'm not sitting as long, I'm not waiting as long, and I get more practice with the weights. Because he's mentioned this a couple times, but I'm usually early on my snatches when I'm getting a little bit hyped up for a competition. So I think doing more attempts in the back will be good for me in general to stay a bit warmer, to get a little bit more practice at the weights. Just for snatches, clean jerks, obviously. I'm not going to go and do multiple singles back there. And I don't generally have issues with clean jerks in competitions. The longer rest time usually helps a bit more with those. And I usually perform well in the clean jerks. Everything in the back felt good with those. And really for snatches, they didn't feel too bad, but you kind of get the feeling when you're starting to work up, like what your top end's going to be. And my top end was definitely like 126. Like that was going to be the most I was ever going to snatch today, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Oh, these are hard with the 10s. I guess you'll see if I keep doing these a lot that the 10s will be easier. Whew. Getting a good burn. And I think that the way I'm doing this mic'd up video now happens to be like 65 out, so it's not bad to train out here. But I think even in the coldest part of the winters that I can still break and enter into this, because as the doors get frozen, it becomes a little bit difficult, but I can still get out here and be all bundled up and do the shoulder stuff. I don't need to, be super warm to do those. And that will be beneficial, and not necessarily do it in the mornings before I go to school, teach, but to do it more so just in general, spend less time like at the actual gym. If like I can still do stuff there, of course, but if I have a light day there or I don't go to the gym and don't train on a certain day, then I can come out here in the dead of winter and still do workouts like this, and also still do some mic'd up videos. So hopefully these continue during the winter, because I enjoy kind of having more time to kind of talk about everything versus having a couple minutes in a training video, because I don't necessarily want to make those longer, because I like that they're shorter, because it's the length of whatever workout, however many reps and stuff that I'm doing, and I don't want to put all the preamble to my lifts before them extend them or have much more blank space at the end than I do. I like that they're short and sweet, because they're like little updates, I guess, of each day of training that I have uploaded, and kind of just the general progress that I'm making. So I like them short. And then these are nice because if you're following my videos, that if it's mic'd up, it's going to be, a very long video. So it's not every video that's super long. It's just kind of a nice mix. But it's nice to have this shed with the sound and whatnot, so I'm not worried about, being in a gym and getting copyrighted with music, unless it's myself copywriting myself because I play music for a lift. But I don't know. This is the hard part of bodybuilding, is I'm bored now of this movement. I guess this is when you're supposed to change the movement from what you're doing to something else. So maybe we'll take this off and do some like upright rows to kind of finish off. Because I'm feeling quite burnt. My shoulders are feeling quite burnt, in a good way. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I thought like after struggling to snatch, I thought I'd be more upset, but like I don't know. I felt like everything that happened today was what I expected, and it wasn't anything that was like radically different than how training has been going. I just want to have a better training block the next peak and then make those adjustments. But it's just interesting because normally, if I went 1 for 3 in the snatch, like I'd be kind of annoyed, but it's kind of just how all my days of snatch have been going lately. Like I've been missing a lot, so at least I didn't bomb out. I made all my warm-ups and then made the first attempt. So you're not going to hit everything all the time. You're not going to be in the perfect condition as much as you'd want to be each time that you go heavy. But all you can really do is just keep trying to figure out what you did wrong and try to improve upon things and get your weaknesses better. That's the biggest thing. You learn what you're bad at and try to improve upon that. So like for snatches, like I'm early when I'm warming up. I'm not super stable above my head. So I'm basically like snatching, I'm inconsistent, which is not really like a news to me. But it just gives me, it's like, all right, in my training, I need to really hammer my shoulders. I need to do a lot more overhead work, whether that's snatch push presses or stuff like this. But I also just need to just practice snatching just a lot more. And it makes sense. You know, it's a balancing act because, you know, I'm trying to be cautious with the shoulder and not making it worse and doesn't really hurt, but I don't want it to start hurting before a competition. But at the same time, you have to do the lifts and you have to, you know, go heavy with them, but make adjustments. But I'm going to take this blue off and do some upright rows, just a bar. I haven't done an upright row in a very long time, so I'm sure they'll feel quite interesting. But let's start and stop this and get working. I suppose thinking about my lower body and some things I would like to work on a bit more is not really like obviously quads, because I'm going to get plenty of that through squats, or really hamstrings because those aren't a weakness and I get enough of those through pulls, but really stuff for like my hips. So whether that's band work or some sort of accessory to really kind of pump the sides of my outside of my hips up, and really just kind of work on those areas. And, you know, just more mobility. I think that will be good as well. Just general stretching, not really specific to any joint, but just in general. Because when I stretch a lot, I usually feel a bit better. So I guess I should have my hands close and do these. Oh, those would be good. So these actually fit really nice. Right now I don't have any weight on it. I probably won't for at least the first time. But obviously, ideally, load up all the movements I've been doing today. This actually is feeling in a really nice spot in my shoulder. It's interesting because if I was a bodybuilder, I'd be trying to target specific parts of my muscle to try to pump those up. But for me, I'm trying to target the spots that feel like they're weak. So I don't know if that would correlate to being smaller in other areas or like areas that'd be good to pump up for bodybuilding. But just for general lifting, like with these, I'm feeling, tip that down, I'm feeling kind of in the front a little bit, but also in the like inside, if that makes sense. But in a good way that's like muscular, not obviously like I'm working my ligaments or anything, but I don't know, it's an interesting part of my shoulder that it's working. These are good. And I'm feeling it more in my left shoulder than my right, which is a good indicator that it's a good movement for me to get good at if it's working my weak shoulder. Oh. Those are interesting. I feel them a bit in my biceps too. That's how little I train biceps. I can literally do an upright row and feel my biceps, but that's interesting. So I'll do probably another set there and probably just end there. I don't want to do, you know, a ton of stuff today, and I'd rather cut off a session like this early and then just do more shoulders the next day if I feel like, you know, I didn't do enough. But you know, I did compete today, so I can afford to be a little bit lazy, but I'm feeling like when I stop doing the movement, I'm really feeling it in a good spot. I actually feel it in my traps as well, which is nice because my neck has been tight for a while. And I think that's probably related to, you know, my shoulder not being as strong on that side and it being probably a little bit tighter in general and pulling on everything. So this might be a really nice movement for me to do in a shoulder workout. So I don't know, maybe I just turn into a bodybuilding channel. No, which I'll never show any pump that I get, but I'll just do bodybuilding. Probably not anytime, because I do find this mentally much easier, but not as exciting. That is for sure. More exciting to do snatches and clean jerks. But I don't have a timeline on specific goals I want to hit. But in the next competition in the spring, April, May, June, one of those months, I would like to be able to open at the 126 and actually be confident to smash that weight. And then for the clean jerks, to be able to open at 160 so I can really take some good attempts at PRs. So that means I just got to get stronger. Wow, I really feel my left shoulder. Like it's weak. Like I feel it like it's weaker than my right. So this will be really good movement for me to have. Oh, all right. That's going to be about good. Whew. Go and have another 1, 4, 5, 6 cookies. The box I had is like 30 chocolate chip cookies in it, so they really went to town. I don't know if they made it or bought them from somewhere, but they're legitimately like 30 cookies in there. And I've been hammering them, which they're quite delicious. So pays to win, I suppose, in small ways. But yeah, I think I kind of covered everything I kind of wanted to debrief upon after the competition. Final thoughts, like I'm not like angry or depressed about it. It's about what I expected, and I didn't bomb out, which is nice based on how that first snatch felt like it was going to go behind me. So it was nice to be able to stabilize that and to still take attempts at competition PRs and for the clean jerk, lifetime clean jerk PRs. So it's nice to be confident enough to try those and not to feel like I'm in such a debilitated state that I have to, drop everything super low and not do those. So there's certainly positives to be taken, and I'm ready to hammer train. That's the best thing about going through a peak, is I always feel motivated after to just do volume, because that's what most people are going to do after a competition anyway. And because I make my own competition schedule, I can train hypertrophy and volume as much as I want, but we're going to try to grow these, make them stronger, not just maybe add muscle to them, but ideally get them stronger. So like the exercise I did today, theoretically, ideally, I'd add weight to them and just keep trying to, just do the basic lifting stuff, the stuff I would do when I was 15, 16, just add a little bit of weight each time and just keep trying to linearly progress them, because there's going to be that novel exposure to these lifts to where I'm going to be able to push them up. Lateral raises probably not as much, just because mechanically those are just difficult to do, to add a lot of weight to them. But these upright rows, I'm feeling like I won't be able to smash those, and maybe try to mix it up in different things. But training in the next day, everything will be back to normal. I don't know what, I have to kind of sit down and think about what I want to do tomorrow, but it'll be normal training. So like this kind of stuff here, this is just a apparition. Like I won't have many sessions that are just this, that I'm out here recording, unless it's like a mic'd up video, because it's actually a perfect thing to do, because I'm going to work harder at these than I would if I'm not recording anything. But also at the same time, it's not just you watching me do 5-pound lateral raises. I don't find that to be a very interesting. But if I'm talking about stuff, I feel like that makes it worth your time, or at least you don't have to necessarily sit here and watch me do these movements. You just listen to me talk about whatever, whether it's to this one about my competition and training in the next blocks and stuff. But I also think, well, this will be my final thought. The length of my training block, when I was doodling the next the next plan that I have for hypertrophy and stuff, it was about 4 weeks in length, and then it would repeat. I don't know if it's going to be that. And essentially, like each of the sessions in the week would stay the same, and then you would progress up the weights in each one. I didn't really, I put like bodybuilding in like on the paper, but nothing that's like specific in it. So I would like to be more specific with the stuff that I do, so I can track the bodybuilding stuff, so I can actually push them up. So a lot of times I do it, I just put shoulder pump, because I just come out here and just do lateral raises till my arms burn, and then I stop. But I want to actually like push these weights up in it and try to get stronger at the accessory movements, and then be able to hammer the regular ones. But I think a lot of my weightlifting will be lighter and more reps, at least for now. And I might, I say that, but next week maybe I'll on Saturday I'll like max out again or whatever. But I'm envisioning that I'm going to have a more conservative block, or a more conservative time initially with the weightlifting, and focus on just getting the practice with the reps and the more volume and more complexes and stuff like that as it's normal, and just trying to get generally stronger. So just trying to do all the things that are correct. And honestly, like outside of the gym too, as far as like nutrition and sleeping and water and all of that, I feel like I've been doing a really good job of that. So part of me doesn't want to necessarily cut down in any weight, but at the same time, like I'm just going to eat when I'm hungry and normal, and that will naturally allow me to lose some weight. Not that I like, if I get under 230, I think I'll be fine. And then maybe, assess from there if I want to continue to drop to like 225, or if I just want to stay at that 230. So we'll assess that. But I don't really envision myself ever really filling out a 109, like being like 111 kilos and then cutting down to that 109. I don't think I would lift well being that big and cutting down. Or do I ever want to just continue eating that much? Because like now, the heaviest I got this whole block is like a watery 238. So like just under like 108. And that's mostly just because I'm, drinking a bunch of water at night. And like this morning I weighed 233, so like 106. And then with eating and stuff, I was up to 107. So like for now, that's a good weight. If I lose a little bit, it's not the end of the world, but it's not going to be like a super dedicated thing where I'm going to start tracking calories and stuff to do that. Just mostly just going to eat by feel, and naturally that gets me to lose weight anyway. But that, and the other thing that Sam Solik may have convinced me on is maybe doing a little bit of cardio. I don't really know what that will entail. I think at least the first thing that comes to mind is doing some jump rope, which won't be anything that I ever record, but doing some jump rope could be nice. As far as just a little bit of like calf work, for weightlifting, that'll be nice, but also just a little bit of work on the heart as well, and probably help me with recoverability and trainability as well. I think I thought about depth jumps, mentioning doing those towards a peak if I hadn't, and you can mention that I just threw it in at the end, and I can talk more about that, but the Sega Strength people talked with that bobsled gun. I feel like I talked about that. So those would be something I experiment with, not for a little bit, but more of like if I'm going to do like a little mini peak to myself, and like I'm like, all right, in 3 weeks, I want to be able to go for new maxes or go for like a really heavy lift, then maybe add those in to kind of peak for that. But yeah, just want to get stronger, get to work on the technique, and just keep trying to do everything right, and get my upper body stronger. That's going to be the big focus, and it really should always be, but really try to do everything I've been doing with my lower body, maybe add some extra stuff in, but really focus on like stuff I did today. Just trying to get as yacked to my upper body as I can, and trying to make my snatches be idiot proof, because that's what you can do when you have excess strength. But that's going to be it for this the video. I apologize that it's not fun lifting, but I figured it's better than having the clips of me doing the competition and talking about it for 60 seconds. I can kind of, like I did in this one, kind of go in depth about all the next steps and stuff. But yeah, just back to normal training. Like I said, next time that I'll look to compete is in the spring. We'll be in that same place most likely, but sometime April, May, June, maybe even July, like at some juncture when it's warmer next year. So I'll have to look at that, but I want to get up to those numbers. I want to hit the 140, 170 before it's all said and done. And I think it's realistic numbers. I just have to, do all the little things to get up to those and stay healthy. And a lot of it's like if I'm sick, can't really do anything about that. That's just bad luck. But trying to do things to make my old hip thing feel good, make sure like I'm not straining my calf randomly, like just all the little things, and I'll do better at it. You can always get better, and that's the nice thing. The reinvigoration of a competition is that you feel like, all right, I can fix all the things that I've been doing wrong and then attack it better at the next one. But let's get back to normal training, get back to hitting some PRs, maybe 140 by next summer. Let's hope for that. We just have to keep the dream alive and just keep working hard. But with that being said, that's it for this video, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Peace.